everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today I am back with my winter, mostly book haul. As you know, I swear myself off from buying books in the latter half of the year because my birthday and Christmas fall during that time. So it is usually in January that I come to you with my total book haul of everything that I either bought myself or very nicely received from friends and family. This year was also a lovely year, but we have quite a scattering of genres and places that I picked up books. It was a good couple of months, honestly. First of all, if you are unfamiliar, I want to explain this one that was in the thumbnail with me. You may have heard me speak about Elizabeth Wheatley, the author and booktuber herself. I love her books. I read Tears of the Wolf and Oath of the Wolf this year. My review of Oath of the Wolf should be up by this point. But she also does a lot of sketches on her channel where she plays Book Goblin. And I think if you are an avid or rabid book lover, you will identify with Book Goblin. Well, towards the end of the year, she came out with Book Goblin plushies, and so now I have my own book minion, and I love it so much. Beyond that, I have picked up a quite random assortment of books, so I'm just going to go through them. I really don't think I can try to organize these, so I'm just going to list them off. First up, I have this tiny book, which I received in the Regency Marketplace winter box, which is Jane Said It Best, Wit and Wisdom from the Writings of Jane Austen. And this isn't a read it all the way through kind of book, I don't think. It's just, well, quotes from Austen's novels with cute little illustrations. Very nice to have. Back at the end of October, the book fair came to school where I teach, and all the teachers are very generously given a coupon for one free book from the PTO. They rarely have books that will fit my beginner level Spanish classroom, so I just went and picked up one for myself. And that is a physical copy of The Davenports by Crystal Marquis. I read an arc of this a few years ago now, and I believe I read the sequel too a year or two ago. And I really, really enjoyed them, especially the first one, so I plan on keeping this as a shelf trophy. If you weren't around at the time, or if you don't remember, this is a novel about the upper echelons of society in the early 1900s in Chicago, but specifically the upper echelons of Black society at the beginning of the 1900s in Chicago. And we follow several teenagers from several of those families and how all of their lives develop. I thought this was a really incredible take and quite a fun story. And I believe the author is semi-local, which is also quite fun. Then I only have a few of them here with me. The others are elsewhere in the house sitting around, but I remembered and then went and found that American Girl published the Josefina books in Spanish as well as in English. So I have a couple of them here, and I have in fact hunted down all 6 books. I say hunted down because these are no longer in print, so I had to go to several used book websites, and I am so thrilled to have them all. I vaguely remember the plots from reading them in English many, many, many years ago. But if you've also been around my channel any length of time, you know that I always say that reading historical fiction in Spanish is incredibly difficult because it's full of terms that we just don't use anymore, so I've never had to learn those particular words. So perhaps starting with these would be a good way to ease into reading more adult novels. Then I went into New York City around my birthday to actually see The Muppets, but we stopped into Kinokuniya on our walk around, and I found Hilary Davidson's new book, so of course I had to pick it up. and it's called A Guide to Regency Dress, From Corsets and Breeches to Bonnets and Muslins. And it is exactly what it sounds like. Hilary Davidson is a historical costumer and an expert on Regency fashion. And this is yet another book she has written detailing Regency fashion. Not only is she very highly thought of, it has a quote here from Amber Butchart, who did the television series A Stitch in Time, also about historical fashion. So I am really, really excited about this. Oh, and there's also a quote on the back from Dinah Collin, who did the costume design for the 95 Pride and Prejudice. Very excited to pick this up. Then a few gifts from my parents for my birthday. They bought me a new Jane Austen by Juliette Wells, which is, I believe, kind of a companion novel to the exhibition that was on in New York City that Marissa and I saw back in June, specifically about how America helped bring about the rise of Jane Austen that we currently have. How much I believe that, I don't really know. How much of this is a companion piece to some of her other books on the same topic, I don't know, but I'm excited to find out. Also, for my birthday, they bought me Troy by Stephen Fry, which is, of course, his retelling of the Trojan War and all of the Greek myths around that. I'll be honest, the Trojan War has never excited me except when it is retold by Stephen Fry. I greatly enjoyed mythos and heroes, so I'm looking forward to reading this very soon, and then possibly reading his retelling of the Odyssey before trying the Emily Wilson translation that has been intimidating me for years. Then for Christmas, they very kindly bought me the next 3 books in Anton Dubek's historical fiction series about the Buckingham Hotel. I can tell you nothing about the plots of these at this point, as this one is book 4, but I can show them off. They are We'll Meet Again, The Ballroom Blitz, and The Paris Affair. And the last book they bought me for Christmas was Great Writers and the Cats Who Owned Them by Susanna Fullerton. I love all of Susanna Fullerton's work that she's done, especially about Jane Austen, but she has focused on other 19th century writers as well. And I love that this is specific to cats and writers who owned cats and presumably fun stories about those relationships. I can see that this would be an incredible amount of fun. And there's a quote from John Mullen on the back, which just speaks to how great a writer Susanna Fullerton is. And a thoroughly nice person. I did meet her briefly at the 2016 AGM for Jasna, and she was just wonderful. Not a book, but they also bought me this puzzle from Pippi Post, which is a map of Avonlea, which I thought is quite fun. Loving the Anne series as I do. You can see it there. So I am very excited to start working on this. Then I visited Marissa of Blatantly Bookish, and we were able to exchange gifts, and she very kindly gave me the illustrated Letters of Jane Austen, edited by Penelope Hughes Hallett, which is exactly what it sounds like. A beautiful edition with lovely illustrations and excerpts from a lot of Austen's letters. Also, this sweatshirt I am wearing, which advertises Pemberley, established 1813, from my aunt and uncle. It is very cozy, a delightful color, and got me some lovely compliments at the movie theater when I wore it to see Wicked over Thanksgiving weekend. Now I'm going to go for the books that I don't have physical copies of right here and now for a variety of reasons. But also when I went to see Marissa, it turns out there was a book sale happening at her local library, so of course we nipped out to that very quickly. And I picked up 4 books, the first of which is Tosh Hart's Tolstoy by, you're testing my memory now, Catherine Ormsdale, which made the rounds on BookTube many years ago when I was first starting to watch BookTube. And I believe it's about a young woman who starts to gain traction online, particularly because of her love of Tolstoy. And I remember hearing fantastic things about it at the time, and now that I'm a part of BookTube, it makes me want to read it that little bit more. I also picked up Sarum by Edward Rutherford. Have I read any of the Edward Rutherford books I've picked up so far? No. Do I want to? Yes, eventually. When will that be? I have no idea. But this is yet another selection of English history, I believe, of a forest or a section of England. I'm not exactly sure what Sarum is supposed to refer to, but I'm still very excited about it. If you're unfamiliar, Edward Rutherford takes a location and tells the history of that location through different generations of fictional characters. So, for example, his book on London tracks the development of London from the Roman settlement up to, I believe, about World War II through various generations of characters. And I think that is a brilliant concept. I also picked up, again, don't quote me because I don't have the physical book here, but I believe it's The Diary of a Provincial Lady in America, which I didn't know existed. I have the other two books in this series, I believe, so I'm very excited to add this one to my collection. I have not read any of them yet, but I have heard pretty good things about them. I also picked up the stage adaptation of The Mystery of Edwin Drood. I haven't read the actual novel, unfinished novel, yet, but once I do, I would love to then also read the play version. It's a musical, I believe. And I know one of my friends performed it at her high school when we were both teenagers and really enjoyed herself. So I'm intrigued to see how that adaptation goes. I believe with the play version, they leave it open-ended, and the audience each night votes on which character they think committed the murder, which I think is a brilliant way to deal with the fact that Dickens never finished the novel. Then I had a load of gift cards from a variety of generous people, so I ordered a ton of books as well. So I'm going to list those for you here because they may not come in for quite a while. So I'm just going to insert pictures on the screen, and excuse me while I look down at my list. The first book I ordered was Human Rights by Juno Dawson. This is the last book in the Her Majesty's Royal Coven series, which I have been loving this past year. And I'm a little bit scared, but also really excited to find out how on earth these women are going to survive. It's an incredible series that takes a really deep look at things like misogyny and witch hunts and trans issues through the lens of this fictional coven. And I love it so much. I love these characters so deeply. I get so frustrated by how real and visceral a lot of the hatred portrayed in these books are, not by the main characters, but by the characters who are clearly meant to be the villains of the piece. They are well worth a read if you've been on the fence. I also ordered two books by Laura Wood, which are A Game of Scandal and A Season for Scandal. And these are the next two books in a series that I also started this year. This is about a fictional ladies' detective agency, I'm going to call it. They're sort of part detective, part spy ring at the end of the 1800s, I believe. And we follow different girls within this spy ring in each novel. And again, it's a series, so that's about as much as I can say. But they were a lot of fun, and I love Laura Wood's writing, as you can tell over here. I also ordered The Elopement by Jill Hornby, which is yet another of her Austen or Austen-adjacent biographical retellings. I have loved all of her books so far. Miss Austen, I think, is still my favorite, but Godmersham Park was also quite fun, and so I'm really excited to see what this one is about. I also ordered The Story of a Murder by Hallie Rubenhold. I have loved Hallie Rubenhold's books for years, not only the 5, but also The Scandalous Lady W, and then leading me into some of Kate Summerscale's books like Mrs. Robinson's Disgrace. This one, I believe, looks at the Dr. Crippen murders, which happened either in the late Victorian or Edwardian era. Because I remember hearing about them on a Stephen Fry podcast. So I'm excited to see her take on them and get an even deeper view into how those came about and what the aftermath was like. Because I believe the aftermath was pretty fun as well. Fun in an intriguing mystery sense, by the way. Not that murder itself is fun. Then I ordered Gabriela and His Grace by Liana de la Rosa, which is the last in the Luna Sisters romance series. I have also loved that series for the past year, 2 years. This is a series about 3 sisters who are sent away from Mexico to London to escape the French invasion in the 1860s. And they are living with their uncle, who's the Mexican ambassador in London. And then they each have their own romance while also being heavily involved in political maneuvering, either directly or indirectly. And each novel follows a different sister. So we saw Ana Maria in the first one, we saw Isabel in the second, and now we are left with Gabriela as the last sister. So I'm really excited to see what her story is like. I also ordered Pure Wit, which I believe is nonfiction about the life of Margaret Cavendish, and I have heard fantastic things about it, but that's also all I can tell you about the premise. So I will let you know as it arrives and as I read more. And then I also ordered 2 more nonfiction books, which are further diaries of Anne Lister. I have the diaries that were decoded by Helena Whitbread, but these also looked like they were a little more extensive and more in-depth, potentially. And they are called Female Fortune and As Good as a Marriage. If you loved the show Gentleman Jack, that show was about Anne Lister, and these are some of her coded diaries. Well, they've been decoded, but she originally wrote them in code. Then finally, I rescued more books from my school library that were being discarded. The first are 2 more books by Gerald Morris, who writes retellings of Arthurian legends for children that are usually quite funny. One is The Lioness and the Knight, and the second is The Princess, the Crone, and the Dung-Cart Knight. I remember loving these in middle school, so I am very excited to read some more of these. And then they were also discarding some Terry Pratchett books. So I picked up The Wee Free Men as a shelf trophy, since I did listen to this, I believe, 2 years ago. But I also picked up its sequel, A Hatful of Sky, which I have not read yet. And finally, the one perhaps I'm most excited to read, The Amazing Maurice, or Morris, and His Educated Rodents, which just sounds incredible. So I might read that sooner rather than later, in fact. So that is the random assortment of books I picked up. I also got some CDs and some board games, but I'm going to leave those out for the moment. Shirts as well, because I know you will see them eventually in videos. But let me know if you are particularly excited to see me read any of these books or hear my thoughts about them, or if you received anything particularly exciting this winter that you think I would really love. Until next time, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye, everyone.